Well, it starts with the MTC. When I was in the MTC in Mexico, the CCMA is what they call it, I started to get super nervous. I was excited but nervous, and I didn't know what to do, and I was missing my family, and it was crazy. But I had the opportunity to have awesome companions my entire mission, for sure. And I think one of the biggest things for me was that when I was in the MTC, they started saying, like, if your trainer's disobedient, make sure that you're obedient and that you tell someone. And they only said it 1 or 2 times, but both times it like hit me hard, and I was like, I'm gonna have the most disobedient trainer in the world. I know it. I can feel it. And I got to the mission field, and my trainer was an angel. She was absolutely perfect. Everybody in the mission knew her for being an angel. She was amazing. And so good. We got to the mission. We started filling out the papers at the mission home, and then I left. And I remember they don't tell you who your companion's going to be, or your trainer. Your trainer and you don't know who each other's going to be until they like kind of call it out and everybody cheers, and it's great. And so I didn't know. But when I walked in and all the trainers started walking in, I looked at her, at my trainer, and I was like, I think it's her, and I hope it's her. And it was. It turned out it was her, and she felt the same way about me. I think something that was super funny is that on the taxi ride home, I spoke nothing of Spanish at all. MTC is great, and I learned a lot, but I was not in any means fluent as far as Spanish goes. And my trainer spoke nothing of English, 2 or 3 words maybe, nothing else. So it was a very silent drive to our first area, and she kept trying to say something in Spanish and like spell it out for me, help me out, and I was like, I don't know what you're saying, I'm so sorry. So we got to our area, and I think a memory that I have is my first street contact. I was so nervous, and I didn't understand any Spanish, and I couldn't speak Spanish. But my trainer's like, okay, it's time, you're going to start. You're going to do a contact. And so I went up, and I contacted a guy in the street, and he did not understand a word I said, not a single word. And I was like, I knew it. I knew he didn't. I was nervous to talk to him, but I had made a decision the night before that I was going to contact, whether I spoke or not. Like, I was going to do something, and I was going to contact someone. So I went up, and I spoke the few words that I could, and he giggled a little bit, laughed at me. He wasn't rude, but he did giggle a little bit. And then my companion, she contacted him afterward because he really didn't understand what I said. And it was great. So we contacted him, went to visit him later, but it was pretty fun. I guess that's one of the experiences I have of the first few days, is just my first contact. It was crazy, and he didn't understand anything, but that's normal. Don't be worried. Oaxaca is amazing. I miss it so much. Let's see. We did have a temple. We had a temple in Oaxaca, just in the city, and depending on where you were in Oaxaca, you had the opportunity to go on occasion. Oaxaca's huge. It's a state, and to get from one side of Oaxaca to the other, it could be an 8-hour drive it could be a 16-hour drive, depending if there's blockades going on. But it could be a really long drive. So it's a really big area, and there's a lot of different culture, a lot of different traditions and things like that. My first area, we had a huge ward. It was like a Utah ward. It was big, over 200 people in the ward, and then a lot of inactives, but we had a huge ward. And I was like, this isn't weird at all. I feel like I'm at home because there's so many people. But then I went to my second area, and there was about 50 people in our ward. And I was like, okay, this is more what I was expecting. We didn't have very many people at all. I think one of the struggles that we have in Mexico, but especially in Oaxaca, is that there's a lot of inactives, because they might be baptized when they're younger or things like that, but then they just don't stick with it. So a lot of our work is helping people be baptized, but also helping people who have been baptized rekindle their faith and come back to church. There's a lot of ways to do the Lord's work, and there's not a specific way to do it. That's why the Holy Ghost is so important, and that's why we need to be in constant communication with Heavenly Father. So pray all the time. Always, always be praying, because prayer is our communication, and it's a two-way conversation. So it's not just us talking to Him, but He always responds to us if we are worthy of the Spirit. And so there's a lot of different ways to do the work, and depending on your area, the work can be very different. In my first area, there was a lot of places that were far away. A lot of pueblitos is what they call them, little towns that are far away. And there, it was really easy to get help from members, because there was a lot of members. There were over 200 members in that ward. And so it was really easy to get members with us all the time, and that was great. And it worked well. Always ask for references. I think we were pretty good. In some of my areas, I was better than others in asking for references. But once you get a reference, you've got to contact that reference, because it means nothing. The number of how many references you get means nothing unless you actually contact them. And the first people that I baptized, that were baptized in my mission, they were references that we had contacted. And it was a full family, and all of them were baptized. And it was a reference from another member. So references are super important. I think that's good. Working with the members is always good in every single area you're in. Sometimes you have to think outside of the box, though. In my first area, I decided, even though I could not speak very much English or Spanish at all, I decided to start giving English classes. And my companion and I, we had kind of figured out a system on how to communicate with each other. Sometimes it was like through signs and sign language and stuff like that, because we weren't very good at communicating with each other in English and Spanish. But we kind of came up with a system, and I would teach in English, and I would have everything written down so that she could then like explain it in Spanish to them, and then we could practice pronouncing in English and stuff like that. So we did English classes in my first area, and that worked out really well. And we received a lot of people just that we wouldn't have gotten to know in other ways that came to our English classes, and that's how they started to listen to us or to the missionaries, depending on where they were. So English classes is always fun. You have talents, you should use them. I heard of some other missionaries in my mission who gave singing classes, and some people, I don't know, there's just so many different ways to do it. You can knock on doors, and in Mexico it's a little bit hard, well, depending on where you are, it's hard to knock on doors because sometimes they don't have a door. Oftentimes there's a gate, and then there's like a huge yard, and then far away is the house. And so it wouldn't always be knocking, it would be more like screaming, hey, come outside. And just depending on where you are. But there's a lot of ways to do the work. I would say it depends on your area, and just stay in tune with the Spirit. Okay, so I served in Oaxaca. I left October 14th of 2015, and I got home April of 2017. And my first area was Etla. It's in the city, but it's a little far away. It was freezing. I was not prepared for that at all. And then after that, I went to Salina Cruz, which is like kind of on the coast, but it's in the Istmo region. And that was really fun. After that, I went to back to the city, to the main city, I guess, to the city of Oaxaca, to a place called Fortin. After that, I went back to the Istmo again. I actually had two areas at the same time. One was Juchitán, and the other one was Espinan. Life is different depending on where you're at, but in the city of Oaxaca, it's awesome. But there's tons of people, and also a lot of tourism in lots of different parts of Oaxaca, because of landscapes or because of ruins, or also just because of the coast, or just depends. There's a lot of tourism there. But a typical day in the city means that you wake up in the morning, and you leave after eating breakfast and everything. You leave the house, and you usually contact people around your house, but then you you usually have to take a bus, and taking a bus is crazy. It's awesome, but it's crazy. It's a lot less expensive, so it's normal that you would take a bus. However, sometimes they jam-pack those buses, so you just kind of have to make sure that it's safe enough to get onto the bus. And a typical day for the people there is they all work. Everybody's hardworking, whether they have actual jobs that they go to working at a certain company or if they are just in home. There's a lot of stores that are built into the houses. So it's a house on top and a store on the bottom, or a store in front and then behind is the house, or things like that. So lots of corner stores and things like that. Everybody's hard workers. The kids usually go to school, and school's kind of different there too. There's 2 different sessions of school. So there can be the morning school that goes from maybe 8 to, I don't know, somewhere in the afternoon, and then those kids go home. And then there's night school. So one starts at maybe 4 o'clock and goes till the evening till 8 or 9, which is something that was super interesting for me. I didn't know that they did it that way. So that's in the city, but also depending on where you are in the Istmo, it could be very different. But there's usually like a big general market where everybody works. So people go and whether they're selling clothes or whether they're selling food or whatever it is, there's kind of a big general spot, the center of the different cities, and that's where lots of people sell things. So, like I said before, the tourism is really big in Oaxaca. There's a lot of ruins, which is super, super awesome. There's a place called Monte Alban, another place called Mitla, and then there's a few others in different spots. In my first area, there was actually a place, just one of the streets that we walked on, and there was just ruins there. You didn't have to pay to see them or anything. It was just walking down the street, and then there's these ruins from who knows how long ago with a sign that says these are from this time period. But it was really cool, and I was like, look, we don't even have to pay for it. So that was awesome. The food there is so awesome. I love Mexican food, but Oaxaca food and Mexican food, like Oaxacan food is like a level higher than any other Mexican food. It's so good. There's lots of different kinds of foods. They use a lot of spices, so sometimes it can be a little bit strong if you're not used to that. But so good, all of it. We eat a lot of chicken, lots and lots and lots of chicken. Chicken soup, baked chicken, fried chicken, just all sorts of chicken all the time. And if you're near the coast, then there's also a lot of fish. You eat a lot of fish as well. Also, some of the snack foods that they have have something that's chapulines, which is like, it's a fried grasshopper, and that was very common to eat there. My first day in the mission, I actually had to eat some of those on a tortilla. That was part of our meal. But it's not an everyday thing. It's just on occasion. As far as culture goes, the culture in Oaxaca is amazing. The people are amazing. Just everybody is so loving and so inviting. It's easy to get into people's houses. It's easy to talk to people and easy to just talk to people on the street, and they're really friendly. They'll always say good morning or good afternoon, and you both talk to each other as you pass. It's not just like walking with your head down and passing each other or anything like that. Everybody's talking to everyone. Everyone's super friendly. I think they just have this general culture of loving everyone, and that's just already so Christ-like, so they're awesome. I love Mexico so much. I love Oaxaca. I don't even know where to start. I guess we'll start with the most trivial, but also super important. Definitely, the food is so good. Like I mentioned before, they have a lot of cultural food. They have something called mole, which doesn't sound good because it's like chicken and then it's covered with this like spicy chocolate sauce. I know it sounds gross, but it's so good. And then they have tlayudas, which is something that's super common, and it's so good. It's good that it's common because you want to eat that as much as possible when you're down there because you can't get it in other places. So that's super good. Their candy is awesome. Their desserts, oh my goodness. Desserts all the time. I would just eat dessert as much as I can. When you're there, enjoy it. Don't be worried about your weight. Just eat lots of candies and things like that. It's so good. Yeah, the food is great. let's see. Other things that I love about Oaxaca are, it's a beautiful place. So beautiful. Super green, humid, more humid in some parts than others, but it's humid and it's gorgeous. Lots of trees, lots of fruit. There's mangoes falling from the tree all the time. Don't ever spend your money buying mangoes at the store because you can just pull them off the tree, or people will leave them outside in a bowl for you to just take as you walk past or walk down the street. Yeah, be careful for falling fruit because they do fall from the trees. And let's see, the people there are just so loving and they all take care of each other. I think that's something that really impacted me, is that everybody takes care of everybody. If there's somebody who's struggling, then people find a way to help. If somebody's sick, then everybody comes together to make sure that they're good. If you ever feel sick on your mission, for me it didn't happen very often, but when I did feel sick, then there was always the bishop there to make sure that I got a priesthood blessing, or there was the Relief Society president, they came over with a tea for me to drink or something like that. They are so loving and so caring, and they take care of their missionaries. And in a lack of a better term, there's a certain status that you have when you're a missionary. It doesn't matter what religion you're from. There's lots of missionaries from different religions there. There's like the Jehovah Witnesses, then there's the Catholics, and they call them all missionaries. If you're going around preaching, then you're a missionary, and they approve of missionaries preaching. They think that's good. There's always, somebody who might be like, I don't want to listen to you, and closes the door, and that's fine. Don't let it rub off on you. Just go to the next door, and they'll probably open because everybody's so friendly. So, yeah, I think those are the biggest things that I love about Oaxaca, the people and the food. And my first baptism in the mission was awesome. I was with my trainer, who's absolutely amazing, super kind, super loving. I absolutely adore her. And we were preparing for the baptism. We had made the programs, and we had just kind of planned it out. We had bought some flowers as well to just have as kind of a centerpiece, and just up at front that we could give to her name's Elizabeth, my first convert, and so that we could give that to her. Anyway, so I think something that was really big is that we have to make sure that the water works before the baptism, because oftentimes they have to get the water from a certain spot, and you just have to make sure that there's a way to get water and that everything's working so that the water can just be, that the font can be filled before the baptism starts. There's been a few times where the water, we thought everything was good, we started filling up the water and it wouldn't work. And there was a time where we had to go and there's trucks that go around with water, and we had to get their giant hose and put it through the window and fill up the font through this water truck. It was crazy. So just make sure that there's a way to get water, because you've been preparing forever for this baptism. Make sure that it works, that it goes well. And in every single baptism that I've ever had, you always have to clean out the baptismal font first, just because it's so dry and there's a lot of wind and they leave the windows open and things like that. It becomes kind of dirty in the baptismal font, so make sure you plan time beforehand to have that clean. So my story is that we were trying to get ready to heat up the water and everything like that, and the person who usually does that, our mission leader, he wasn't able to, so he kind of just gave us the keys and said, you guys do it. And we're like, okay, we can do it. It can't be that hard. It was hard. There's actually this giant hole in the ground that's like, it's a kind of a well that they get, and they have to, we have to get like this key and like put our hands down in it and turn it, and you have to be super careful so that you don't fall in because it's a giant hole. And anyway, it was really funny because I'm trying to communicate with my companion. Still, I don't speak that much Spanish, and she doesn't speak that much English. We're just trying to communicate on what we need to do and everything, and you have to stay together, so you can't go from one room to another without the other person. Anyway, but it was crazy, but the first baptism that we had was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had. Just to know that you help somebody else in their journey to become closer to the Heavenly Father and to be able to return to live with Him. The fact that you're part of that journey is amazing. So I say, don't get too stressed. Make sure to work hard, but don't get too stressed on how perfect everything needs to be, because it won't be perfect. But just remember how much you love the person, and if they can feel your love, then the baptism will be perfect. Yeah, I think that's like the biggest thing. I want to share a story about one evening when I was in my second area. The area was called Salina Cruz, or it was actually called Oleoducto Salina Cruz. And at this point, I was actually training, and me and my companion, we were trying to figure things out. I wasn't the perfect trainer as far as teaching English to her goes or things like that. I was always worried about how good I was being as a trainer, but you just got to make sure, if you ever are in the position where you're training, make sure that you just love them and make sure that they know that you love them. Take care of them over taking care of yourself, and make sure that that they feel your love. And when I was, so there was one evening we were trying to figure out something new to do, because we had just been in a zone conference where he was telling us that we need to think outside of the box. Our mission president was telling us that there's not one way of doing missionary work, and you think that there's, just contacting, and then there's just knocking on doors and just contacting in the streets or things like that. But there's so many other ways of doing missionary work, and so we're trying to think of new ways of doing missionary work. So we're praying that we would have new opportunities in a different way to kind of share the gospel. And near our house, there was a bunch of just apartment complexes, super big. There's about 15 of them, and they're giant, which means there's a lot of kids that from all those houses that would all gather together, and they would play and things like that. We had an investigator there who we went to visit. He was 14 years old. And we went to go visit him and to teach his lesson, but he was outside playing with his friends. And his friends were in an age group of, 16 to, I think the youngest was like 4 years old, so he was playing with all of them. And so we went and saw him, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I forgot, and I'm here with all my friends." And we're like, "You know what, it's okay. No worries." And he's like, wait, how about you teach all my friends? And we're like, "All of your friends?" "Of course, let's do it. Where do you want to do it? Just out here?" And so we taught a lesson outside to him, and he loved singing, so we would always sing a hymn as we started a lesson with him. And we brought out our little tiny hymn book, because it's easier to carry if it's small. So we had 2 tiny hymn books, and we started to sing "I Am a Child of God" with him. And so he was there sitting down listening to us, a few of his friends there too. And within minutes after we started singing "I Am a Child of God," you think all of these 15 apartment complexes, there was a kid from at least one of them, one kid from at least 15 of these apartment complexes, and by the time we finished the song, they were all trying to sing with us. And this was like 30 kids, all gathered around 2 sister missionaries and one of our investigators. And they were all sitting there and all trying to sing along with us and trying to gather around our 2 tiny hymn books. And that was an incredible experience, something that touched me so much, because there's all those scriptures about being as a little child. And there were a few parents that were standing around too, because they were playing at the park with their kids in this little area where we were teaching, and they kind of gathered in and started to listen to us. Later, of course, we contacted the older people, and they didn't want to listen to us, but they loved that we were teaching their kids. And so we came back again, and we taught Seth and our investigator, and then also the kids again. And after that, after a few times of visiting them and singing with them, their favorite thing to do was sing. We would sing with them, and then we would share a short lesson, just because they're young and so they can't be distracted for that long, or they get distracted easy. So so we taught them for a few times, and then we actually started to contact them, ask them where they lived or where we could go visit their parents to see if we could teach them in their homes, and their parents as well. And we actually got to start teaching a few of those kids and their parents, and it was just so awesome. I think a big thing that worked well for us is working with the kids, working with the children and with the youth. Start with them, start working with them and teaching them, and then they often give you the opportunity later to find their parents and teach them as well. And out of all those kids that we found, as of yet, I haven't heard that any of them have been baptized or that their parents have. But, if you're just starting the process and planting the seed, then pretty soon other missionaries will be able to find them and visit them, and who knows, pretty soon they could be baptized and could gain that testimony of the restored gospel. Advice that I would give to sister missionaries who are headed to Oaxaca or southern Mexico is make sure that you bring a rain jacket because it can pour. There was a few times when me and my companion put plastic bags on our heads and on our bodies just to try to keep, and on our bags just to try to keep everything from not getting wet. It rains, and it rains hard in all of Oaxaca, but specifically in the Istmo, but really everywhere. And when it rains, it pours, and the streets sometimes become like rivers. You are walking through rivers as you go down the street. So I would say bring boots, rain boots that are comfortable for walking in, and or at least bring money to buy some when you're there. And then also, bring a good rain jacket because you're going to need it. I was not prepared, and I think it says that in the packet, but follow that instruction because it's so important. Also, something that I feel like it didn't say in the packet that is needed in Oaxaca is you need to bring your own bedding. So bring your own sheets and things like that, because that's needed. I don't know if all missions need that, but in Oaxaca you do. So bring a pillowcase and bring sheets. I would say don't bring too much clothes, really. It's not worth it. Packing so much and paying like tons of extra money to have an extra suitcase, it becomes a hassle in the mission if you're transferring, especially in Oaxaca where you have to transfer, like there's an 8-hour drive to get to your next area in a bus. You don't want to be at the bus station with all of your, with extra suitcases. It just becomes a huge hassle. So pack light, and you can always buy things when you're there. If you need an extra blouse or if you need a new skirt, they're inexpensive and there's a lot of them there. Buy things that aren't super heavy because it's hot. It will get super hot. It rains a lot and it gets hot, and if you're wearing something that's thick, you don't want to be wet in that and you don't want to be sweating in that. So buy lightweight stuff to bring with you. Oftentimes there's wind, so I would encourage maybe bringing some lighter weight flowing skirts, but also bring some that are good for the wind so nothing blows up. And in the Oaxaca mission, it's actually acceptable now to wear pants in certain areas for girls. So for sister missionaries, I would encourage to bring maybe even just one. I didn't have any, but I borrowed my companion's once. But it's good to have because there's a lot of mosquitoes. So bring bug repellent too, and make sure you can get it there, but if you can, bring bug repellent because that's always needed. You are always going to need bug repellent and sunscreen. If you use sunscreen, make sure to bring it because you can also get burnt. Safety things, just don't wear a lot of big jewelry, even if it's pretty. You don't, when you're a missionary in Oaxaca, in Mexico, you don't have to be gorgeous and wear lots of jewelry and lots of makeup because it's just going to fall off anyway and your hair's going to get all messy anyway. Try to look nice, obviously, but wearing high quality clothes is kind of something that can last, but something that's simple is best. Also, because you don't want to look too incredibly wealthy when you're around a bunch of poor people who don't have very much, because it's hard for them to relate to you if they think that you're a lot higher class than they are. And it's good to just be simple and always remember to be humble in every situation. As far as safety goes, just stay in areas that you know are safe. If you're going to start looking for new areas or going kind of out of your normal area, make sure that you have enough time and that you don't get there when it's starting to get dark, because you don't want to be lost when it's dark. That's not a good situation to be in. Make sure your phone is always charged. So if you do get lost, then there's always a bishop to call or always somebody to call. And like I said, the members are super, super helpful and super loving, so there will always be someone who can help you out. So yeah, always make sure your phone's charged, and stay in areas that are light and that aren't scary. If you feel like you need to go to an area that's new or different or maybe a little bit less desirable or scarier than a normal place, make sure that you're following the Spirit. I just want to share with you who are listening to this video or watching this video share with you my testimony that serving a mission is the most incredible experience ever, and you can't replace it with anything else. There are so many opportunities that you have to serve and to grow and to help other people to serve and grow. And you just need to make sure that you're following the Spirit. Be obedient, because obedience brings happiness and brings success in the mission. Be obedient and also help others to be obedient. Also, make sure that you're showing your love to others constantly and making sure that you are the first to apologize if you do something wrong. Make sure that you're humble, because humility brings success as well. Focus on the Christ-like attributes. I think that was something that helped me the most. Is I was always trying to focus on one of them, and I wasn't perfect at any of them, and I'm still not. But I did have many opportunities to grow. And when you have an attribute of Christ that's on your mind, then you have something to focus on and to work on, and then you feel like you're progressing every day. And that's what you should feel like. The best way to live your mission and to enjoy your mission is through service and through serving others. Don't ever focus on yourself, because that never brings you happiness. What brings you the most happiness is when you are helping someone say their first prayer, or when you are helping someone go to church for the first time, or when you're teaching someone who Jesus Christ is. When you're talking about Joseph Smith and the wonderful opportunity that he has given us to know the restored gospel. Those are the things that bring you happiness, and I can't explain my joy and my gratitude for the moments that I've been able to be a part of somebody's life as they are entering the waters of baptism. That's the most incredible experience, to watch somebody make that covenant, that first covenant with Heavenly Father. When you are home, when you come home from a mission, make sure to stay in contact with those people so that they can continue to feel your love and know that you're always there for them. And make sure to not be scared of talking. Make sure that you're following the Spirit so that you don't talk too much, but make sure that you are willing to share your testimony at any moment given. Even if it's hard, even if you feel like the person that you're talking to isn't going to accept what you're saying, even if you feel like the person that you're talking to doesn't understand or doesn't want to understand. Share your testimony with everyone, and don't be afraid to share your testimony, because no matter who you are or what you think you have to offer in the world and to other people, the most valuable thing you have on your mission is your testimony. And that's the most valuable thing that you have in life, is your testimony. Never be scared to share it, because you can touch so many people's lives, and there's many people who are waiting specifically for you, people that only you can help, or that God has prepared for you. And never take pride in your work. Take pride in the Lord and His work, because everything that you're doing it for Him. And He will bless you. And I promise you that going on this mission is going to change your life. And it's going to help you make better decisions in the future. It's going to help you be happier. And it's going to help you learn how to share your testimony in any way, shape, or form. And a lot of that's through service. I want to bear my testimony that I know the gospel is true, that I know Joseph Smith is a prophet. There's a lot of people who don't know that, who need to know that, and who need to know that Christ atoned for their sins, that he atoned for their weaknesses, that he atoned for their weaknesses and their problems, and that he knows exactly what they're going through. And a lot of people just need to know that there's somebody else out there who understands perfectly what they're going through. Pray a lot. Never cease to pray, because you need to be in constant communication with the Lord. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.